All right. And also notice here that the first bullet point says made of elements in a specific ratio that is always the same. So ratio just means something like 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. So for every two of these, you have one of these. For every four of these, you have two of these, that kind of thing. So in this case, for every H atom, for every two hydrogen atoms, you have one oxygen. In this case, for every Na, every sodium atom, you have one Cl, one chlorine atom. So this is a 1 to 1 ratio. H2O is a 2 to 1 ratio because of two hydrogens, one oxygen. And then you come down here to CO2. This is a 1 to 2 ratio. Remember again, if you don't see a number by the atom, you assume there's a 1 there. So again, 1 to 2 ratio, one carbon, two oxygens. They're always in this ratio. It has a chemical formula. So H2O, it's water, its chemical formula is H2O. For table salt, its chemical formula is NaCl. For carbon dioxide, the gas that we exhale, it is CO2. And then it's also important to remember that for compounds, you can only separate them by chemical means. You cannot physically separate them, which means a chemical reaction has to happen in order for them to get separated. You can't just go and like get some scissors and cut an H2O molecule in half, or get a scalpel and slice an NaCl molecule in half. You can't do that. It has to happen through some kind of chemical reaction that separates them. Like, for example, photosynthesis, the thing that plants do, it's a process they do when you give them water. What happens is throughout the process, the hydrogen and the oxygen separate, and this oxygen goes out into the atmosphere, and that's like the oxygen that we breathe, right? So it has to happen. It has to get separated through photosynthesis because, again, you can't use scissors or a knife to cut these molecules. Right, so here we have another example of compounds, right? Which is what we just saw. Again, NaCl, which is table salt, H2O, which is water, CO2, which is carbon dioxide, the gas that we exhale. So when atoms of two or more different, remember that's what we were saying earlier, that's a key word, different elements, when they get together and chemically combine, they form a new substance with completely different properties. Right. So in the example of table salt, NaCl, Na is this like very explosive solid, and Cl is this toxic gas, right? Poisonous gas. But when Na and Cl get together, you get table salt, right? The salt that we put in our food. And so it turns into something different, right? The when they're separate, they act differently, but when they come together, they act like something entirely different. Right? These are known as compounds. And here again, we see those little Mickey Mouse heads, right? And so we can even think of this as water, as H2O, where that those little white ones are the hydrogens, the H's, H2, and the little black circles are the oxygen, right? So it can be different things, but that's just what we've been using so far. So let's just pretend these are H2O molecules. Right, so similar to elements, all of the molecules in a compound are identical to each other. So every single molecule in here is an H2O molecule, which means every single one has two hydrogens, one oxygen. So it's pure water molecules, right? Both elements and compounds are pure substances because in this case, each molecule in here is identical to every other molecule in here.